Hello friends and gamers, my name is Jinx and welcome to the Global War 1936 Annual YouTube War Tournament. The game progresses onwards, the tournament proceeds, the first tier of games is all wrapped up. This video is an attempt at giving a bit of a summary of where we are right now, where we have been, and perhaps where we're going in the near future. So there's some tasty things to watch today, and just bear with me as I play around with this new software as well as I switch between windows. So let me see. The Global War 1936 tournament had this idea of we'd have multiple games going on at once. We'd have 3 or 4 games depending on how many interested parties, and the winners of those games would proceed to the next tier of games. So it's illustrated here. The winners of the tier 1 games would move on to the second tier. The winners of these games would move on to the third tier, where it's a single game, and the winners would be crowned the tournament winners of 2024. So that's the look of how it went. So thus far we had 4 games, with the last minute game being thrown into the mix, Operation Tripits, right at the very end date of when the admissions would occur. And so we had 4 fun games occurring. Now in the first game we had, it was called Operation Akagi. We had Germany played by the Warden, USSR by the Tactical, Japan by Major Foe, and the British Commonwealth and France by Silk, and the USA by Elite Golden. Now a fellow by the name of Bird Motion put together a lovely video, and I'll try to remember to put it in the links of the description, and I'll watch his video now. Now what he did is he changed the map each and every turn, changed this map and colored it in as territories were captured by different parties. Now I had a quick look at this, and I haven't looked at it too much in detail before, but I know that it doesn't tick turn by turn. It actually ticks 12 turns per 12 times per 2 years. So there'll be, January, February, March, April, May, that type of thing. Or at least that's what it looked like. So it might be a little bit deceptive. I did it at half speed as well, so I could kind of narrate what goes on. But we start off with a typical original setup that we oftentimes see. Starting off with Germany. Germany annexes Austria, and they capture the Basque country from the Russians. But the Russians promptly capture it back. Now it moves on to the Russian turn. They don't seem to have acquired anything in Asia. Things seem to be kind of normal. The Italians capture Abyssinia, and the KMT don't do much on their end. And we move on to the next round, where the nationalists grab southeastern Spain, eastern Andalusia. The Russians don't seem to be doing too much on their end, and Asia remains quiet. It looks like Germany annexed Slovakia as well, which I don't think is actually legal. I think they have to go with Bohemia first before Slovakia. And the nationalists capture up here in the Basque country. So the Republicans recapture it on their turn, and Asia again looks still quiet as Japan hasn't made its move just yet. So Germany annexed Bohemia now, and looking at Asia, which will be the next dramatic bit, in January 1938, still the war hasn't kicked off. The Republicans capture eastern Andalusia, and things are still moving forward slowly. As we noticed, Abyssinia fell quite quickly, and now we get into the more meat and potatoes of how things will change up. So I'm going to slow the time even further, because things will get interesting now, I'm sure. Alright, progressing onwards. Still, Japan hasn't made too dramatic moves. Looks like the nationalists aren't doing as well as they ought to be in Europe, only holding on to Leon Castile over here. So they perhaps made some ambitious moves and ended up not being too successful with anything else. Holding on to only one territory in the mainland, meaning that there's a lot of recruitment roles going over to the Republicans, and it's just going to be a difficult attempt for them. And still nothing from the Japanese thus far, and also the CCP hasn't seemed to acquire any additional territories on their own. January 1939, still no big moves. The nationalists haven't done too much on their end, and perhaps here we see an interesting invasion. Let me just rewind that for a second. It must be the Russian turn, but I see that the Germans have annexed quite a bit of stuff. Hold on, how did I miss that? November 38, January 39 is going to come up in a second here. And what occurs in January 39? So we see that Germany has acquired parts of Poland, going as far as eastern Poland over here. What's that called? No, not Lubelski. It might be called Lubelski. So, and the Russians, the KMT look like they're engaged now in combat as they have annexed Qinghai. Although perhaps that's just due to an annexing role by the CCP. The Russians on their end, they capture Eastern Germany, which is quite interesting. The Finns are now over to the German side, so we see everything kicked off really quickly for these guys. That's pretty interesting. I wasn't aware of that. March 39. It's going to take over here soon. The Italians still seem to be at peace with not too much going on for themselves. Oh yeah, the Italians captured southern France. Sometimes it ticks over and I don't even notice. I almost have to look at things very widely. And I guess the I missed it too, but the Japanese did pick up the Indonesian islands quite quickly, as well as Siam. They got through a recruitment role, but yeah, that went pretty quickly. They captured it roughly in the new year here, instead of going after China. It looks like also that the Mongolians got annexed by the USSR, and then Japan went and lunged into Russian territory. So that's pretty interesting. The Italians, when the turn comes around, you see that they capture southern France, and we see a lot of China, like Sudan went over to the Italians, and a bunch of other territories as well. And that is pretty interesting to see how that rolls out. These are initial moves. Here you see the Germans recapture the whole much of Polish territory, what they captured from the Russians. That was probably an airborne assault, and they lunged deep into Russian territory, capturing Leningrad, looks like, as well as Smolensk and the coast of Aquitaine here, and they succumb to the enemy. So just prior to occurring, we see the Italians holding on to this area, the Spanish capturing Western Andalusia. So things are pretty interesting on this end. I was unaware of all this stuff going on, but that's pretty interesting how that played out. Yeah, they're pushing hard into Russian territory with some airborne assaults here. And we see the Vichy being formed. So it looks like Japan is still not at war with the KMT, because otherwise it would have all been aligned. We see Stalingrad fall to the Germans. Helsinki is held by the Germans, and we see the British make an airborne landing deep into Alsace-Lorraine, and the Italians capturing bunches of northern Africa, as well as Transjordan, Syria, Iraq, doing quite well for themselves thus far. The Japanese not doing too much, just a massive amount of territory acquired by the Germans, doing quite well for themselves. The Republicans still battling it out, but it seems to be that things are a little bit less easy. Now it looks like the Japanese kicked off their fight on this turn in January 1940, grabbing some Russian territory, and now all of it is aligned to the KMT. Looks like the CCP is out of the picture completely too. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting. Japanese making their play on the coastal regions. Kwangtung and much of the interior still held by the KMT forces. Yeah, things don't look so good for those guys. Egypt falls to the Italians in 1940. Pretty interesting stuff. The KMT doing okay, capturing another territory here for the Japanese. And of course, just this massive spread of German conquests occurring, pushing hard against the Russian forces. That is looking pretty grim. With the Italians holding on to Egypt, it's a very difficult game for the Allies at this point. Yeah, and then the Japanese making inroads, capturing the bulk of like the income generating territories in the Russian Far East. The Russians would be definitely struggling at this point, not being able to do too much with what they have for resources. Crazy. Not too many dramatic moves. The nationalists are still condensed down into a tiny little Leon Castile area. The Japanese making massive moves everywhere. The Russians making a bit of a push, grabbing western Ukraine. The British pushing back in Africa, pushing against some of the Italian territories there. Yeah, but things look pretty grim for this one. I believe this one was where the Axis won. Across all four games, the Axis won in three of the four games, and the Allies winning only in one, with a final last-minute ditch effort. For a while, it looked like all four tables would have Axis wins. The British capturing Syria. This looks like the CCP being back in play in Asia. The British recapturing Syria and Transjordan, doing quite well for themselves over here, and capturing parts of North Africa as well. Good job for them. Oh, but the Germans holding on to much of northern Russia now. Things are not looking so good for the Russian forces. They must really be feeling the pinch of income right now, especially now as you see things are looking pretty difficult for them, losing much of the Far East as well as the some of the areas here in the western portions of Russia. The nationalist Spanish capture Madrid, so they're suffering as well. The British are doing quite well in Africa, recapturing that territory. The KMT is still holding on to but they've lost their income generating territories. But the FVC is capturing territory, recapturing starting to capture the Indochina territories and threatening the Japanese holdings there. The nationalists are growing in strength, but the Russians are rapidly collapsing with nothing much going for them right now. Things are pretty grim. The British slowly recapturing territories in Africa, but still not managing to hold on to Egypt or capturing Egypt. So it's a matter of time. But they did capture Istanbul and are pushing into the Balkans. So that's quite good for them. That's probably a good move to relieve pressure off the Russians. Although perhaps it's a little too late. Too little too late, unfortunately. Not that they had much to afford afterwards. I'm really not aware what went on in this game, but it's interesting to see. We see the Japanese making a play for India, capturing the Maharashtra territory, and basically the full collapse of the Soviets here, with not much left for them to generate income. Yeah, and they did make a play for Azerbaijan, the Soviets, but that's not worth much to them at this point. Yes, Egypt falling to the British. That's quite good. That'll give a nice bit of money into their pockets. And Japanese slowly being pushed back in this neck of the woods, although the line kind of finalizing in the FVC India territory, up in the jungles and the mountains. The CCP is growing. The KMT is still present, so they're doing quite well. The Germans making their presence known in North Africa now. But still, the massive amount of income from the USSR is now over in German territories, or in German hands, and so they're just going to outproduce everybody else. We see the Republicans push back into Catalonia. They're probably going to fall quite quickly. So that's one victory point to the Germans. Although the fact that Germany wasn't getting their blue division the entire game is quite nice as well. It looks like Iraq is in Soviet hands. Yeah, for sure. And the Germans make a play for Scotland. It looks like they're holding on to it for now anyways. Transcaucasus is still being held by the Soviets. And the Japanese making a solid push against the KMT forces. So things are kind of turning around for them right now. That's going to be difficult. Yeah, it looks very clearly like a Axis win. 1944. At this point, I don't think they even went for the legal ending of the game. I think they just called it prior to it because there's no way that anybody else could win, with London falling to the Germans as well. That would be an immense pressure there. Yeah, there. Still, the Soviets making a play in the Middle East here, grabbing some territories. Things are kind of leveling out. I didn't see much presence of the Americans in the Pacific Ocean. They seem to be kind of out of it for a large portion. I don't know if at any point... Looks like one of the islands at some point went across to the... Going back over here in 1944, this island of Kiska went over to the Japanese, but then the Americans recaptured it. But yeah, pretty grim. And the final toll was Axis collected 13 victory points, the Allies 5, and the Comintern 1. So quite a rough game for those guys. All right, and that is this one. Now we turn our attention to the next game. Oops, that's not right. Okay, I somehow lost it. Here we go. Now that's pretty cool. Let's give him a like. Oh, I guess I'm not signed in. All right, so we can't give him a like. That's Operation Akagi. So I probably said this one wrong. No, I think I'm right. Operation Akagi. I don't know if you guys still can see what I can see, but that's Operation Akagi. Let's turn our attention to the next one, Operation Neptune. So, Operation Neptune, the Electron played Germany. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, you can't. All right. Germany and Italy was played by the Electron, USSR played by Aftertaste, Japan by Darsfoot, and British Commonwealth by the Veteran, and Edelwolf played the USA. So that would be Operation Neptune. Let's turn our attention back to YouTube to see if we can watch this one play out. Neptune. Okay, June 36. We see, of course, the Germans Anschluss Austria. We see a mighty push by the the Spanish nationalists, capturing eastern Andalusia as well as Basque Country. Doing quite well for themselves. KMT acquired Shanghai over here in Asia. And that looks about it on this end of things. Yeah, fairly typical first turn. The nationals are a little bit tougher than expected in this neck of the woods in Spain, but apart from that, a fairly typical first turn. Turning our attention to, looks like the Italians were successful in capturing Abyssinia. That would be a turn 1 capture. That's probably the best way. Looks like the CCP captured Peking. That's good for them. That's some nice income in their pockets. And we see the Republicans condensed down to one single territory in Catalonia. The Germans haven't acquired Bohemia and Slovakia, but that's interesting regardless, and that's okay by that. Yeah, things are okay so far. April, May, June, so we're coming up to the next tick across. And we'll probably end up seeing the Germans start annexing Bohemia. There it is. Bohemia came next. Yeah. I've seen something. Oh, yeah. It looks like the KMT captured this northern region, probably by a missed CCP influence roll. So they've got some extra resources in their pocket now, the KMT forces. That's going to be a tough nut for the Japanese to crunch into. Yeah, but good on the Italians for capturing Abyssinia. That was well done by them. In this game, in this video, I have to watch the situation in Asia a little bit more carefully. Okay, now the Germans annex Slovakia, because last time I missed any large piece action. Part of it's deceptive too, because you're not going to see too many islands change hands, and you can't see the presence of fleets very much going back and forth. So that's going to be interesting too. Yeah, most of the battles aren't going to be territory oriented. It's just going to be ship maneuvers back and forth. So January 38, we don't see too much occurring now. We see the Republicans condensed to Catalonia. Apart from that, kind of a quiet. Oh, it's paused. Kind of quiet as is right now. Yeah. March, April. We'll soon see some action. Things get explosive in that first turn when Germany has their lightning war ability, if they end up using it. The Republicans capture the Basque Country. Still a pretty quiet turn. Let's see if the Japanese make a play for the Indonesian islands, the Dutch East Indies, or if they're going to instead go for China. I suspect it's going to be China. March 39. So the Republicans recaptured Madrid, and it looks like there's been a play made on the... Okay, let's rewind a tad, because I kind of missed that. All right, we see in January 39, we see the Germans capture Belgium. So by that token, they look like they're going to hold on to their lightning war. Romania went and joined... Oh, is controlled by Germany now. Yeah, that'll be it. And Siam is also controlled by Japan. And now Italy went to war. They captured Alsace-Lorraine, as well as they've captured Tunisia, and they've held on to Abyssinia, so that'd be Sudan right there. The CCP lost some territory to the KMT. And now Germany perhaps it did a lightning war. Oh no, they didn't. They just captured Paris. Probably with the Blitz tanks. Yeah, I'm thinking with Blitz tanks. Captured Poland, went over to the Brits. They've captured Aquitaine. Looks like CCP gabbed some territory too. And yeah, Vichy France came into being as well. It looks like the Republicans exploded outwards and captured much of Spain. So that's going to be interesting. Yeah, Italians grabbing all the Free French territory they can. The KMT still shoring their position up. The Japanese grabbing the French islands, the French Indochina. Now it looks like the Japs are at war. Are they at war? Looks like they became a major power. Oh no, the USSR went to war against Japan. USSR also captured Eastern Germany. That's interesting. And wow, look at that. The situation in India is that the Japs grabbed Calcutta. So well done for them. That's pretty good. Yeah, they did quite well in this game. But the presence of the Italians in Europe diminished quite considerably. It's not really there now. Yeah. So Japan did a big focus on India to the neglect of the KMT forces. So they might even become a major power. And now we see the German inroads against Soviet territory. Italy's not doing as good as they could be. Stalingrad switching hands, but Turkey going over to the... I don't know if they were attacked or what. I'm assuming so. By the Russians. Yeah. Oh no, probably due to... Let's see. No, I don't know. by Transcaucasus perhaps being in German hands, then Turkey flipped. Yeah, that's rough for the Soviets in this game as well. Denmark being in German hands. Nationalists not doing so good. I see some switching territories here in the Pacific, so it looks like the Americans are at war. Grabbing this territory, yeah. Now Scotland falling to the Germans. Germany picking up Iran and Smolensk and pushing towards Kazakhstan area. Just a rough situation. The Japanese grabbing the Dutch East Indies over here. Yeah, things are... Oh, but the KMT grabbing Southeast China, doing quite well. Americans grabbing the Philippines. They must be in force over here. The Japanese retaking it. The KMT making a bit of a push here towards Japanese territories. And Germany capturing Egypt. That's not one that you see too common. And that happened a while ago. Yeah, Germany capturing Egypt. So that's going to definitely allow the Italians to grow in strength. The Italians have Cyprus as well. So that's going to add some income to their pockets. Yeah, this game is... The Allies are doing quite well for themselves, despite the situation being grim. The Axis grabbing all of the Middle East. And, you know, with Calcutta out of the picture as well. So things are... The Axis are doing really good too. Don't get me wrong, for sure. But if I'm not mistaken, this is the one where the Allies won. So they managed to take this situation and turn it around, which is really interesting. They managed to turn it around quite nicely. Yeah. And the Soviets still hanging on, doing good for themselves. British recapturing Egypt. That's really well done. Oh, the Americans capturing Istanbul. Nice. But losing it still. The British recapturing parts of India. That's pretty good too. Yeah, British capturing Egypt. Nice. Americans all in northern Africa. The Japanese holding out in Calcutta. And the KMT grabbing Borneo. That's really cool. So Japan's struggling in this game. Southern Italy being over into American hands. Britain capturing much of the Middle East now. That's really interesting. This is a tight game. The Republicans still present. The Nationalists still dominating though. The CCP growing in strength. That's pretty cool. And yeah, the Japanese almost being wrecked on the continent as Calcutta falls. Yeah, Japan is struggling in this game. KMT capturing some interesting territory. This is an interesting game for the Chinese. That's wild. Oh, Egypt falling back to the Germans and being lost again. Probably an opportunistic strike. Southern England going over to Germans. America capturing Hokkaido, I believe it's called. Northern Japan. Oh no, that's KMT. Southern Japan going over to the Americans. That's cool to see the Chinese so strong. This game is wild. This would be a fun one to be part of. The Italians grabbing Egypt. Egypt changes hands a lot. This game seems to have very aggressive players where they... Oh, Japan completely crumbling over here. Where a lot of dramatic shifts, a lot of territory changing hands, a lot of important territory changing hands. Egypt going over to the Brits. Japan holding out in Tokyo and Korea. Americans still on the boot. What did I see over here? Yeah. I think, yeah, Germans being kicked out of England, and Tokyo falling to the Americans. Wow, that is interesting. This makes for a very interesting game. Allies won with 13 points, Axis with 9, and Comintern 1. Well, good job, Allies. You guys, yeah, that was astounding. Well done. Well done. Oops. Well done, guys. That was a really interesting game. I need to take another look at it. Yeah, that is very interesting. Oh, goodness. Come on, go back. Come on. Neptune. Pause it. All right. That's very interesting. So, Soviets starting to re-grab territory. Looks like Germany never went for Sweden. Norway. Americans grabbing Tokyo. That's wild. China grabbing all of the Asian coastline. That's pretty cool. That's an interesting game. I wonder when, looks like the Nationalists fell in October or September 44. The Nationalists finally captured all of Spain. That's pretty crazy. Interesting game. Interesting game. So in this game, the Allies definitely won. All right. Turning our attention to the chart here again. So that was Operation Neptune. Turning our attention to Operation Hats, which is my game. We finished last. And I have to say, for the credit of Davik, he wanted to play until the legal ending of the game, and they might have been able to change the situation quite dramatically as well. But the thing is, we were pushing already into 4 months of playing, and we're moving into our fifth month. Was that right? Yeah, moving into our fifth month, which would have been too long. So we looked at it, and I persuaded everybody, saying, "Look, honestly, in the next 3 turns, things aren't going to change. The Axis are still probably going to win." And everybody kind of agreed. But to the credit of the Allies, they're willing to play it out, and it could have changed still. But we made some, we agreed that we thought we had a good situation there at the end. And I'll go over my. Actually, you know what? We're gonna go over mine last. So Operation Tripits, we have Shadow playing as Germany, Spitfire as the Soviets, Japan playing as Rebubs, Seb Scullion playing as the British Commonwealth, and Deathadist as the USA. So let's take a look at Operation Tripits. Where's my thing? All right, let's go. Oops, let's go back. This is Akagi. Oh, that's not the one. Is this Tripits? It is Tripits. Okay, so let's start with Operation Tripits. Typical start. Germany annexes Austria. CCP grabs Peking and those two territories. Nationalists grabbed a Basque country but lost Andalusia. I'm going to speed it up for this first little bit of the game because... Actually, no, it is already decently sped up. So, oops, looks like the Nationalists capture Madrid. Nothing much else occurred here. Bohemia is not being annexed yet. It'll probably be next turn. The Italians haven't captured Abyssinia yet. Kind of a quiet beginning. Not as dramatic as some of those other games where Abyssinia fell. And the Nationalists captured Spain quite quickly. That didn't take them too long. What was that? 1, 2, 3 turns? 3 turns to capture them? That's not too bad at all. Oh, but the Japanese made an early play against the KMT, grabbing some territory here, doing quite well for themselves, grabbing some income. Although that's only 1, 2, 3, 4, $5 of income gained. Not a lot, but still worth it, I think. Worth it. Germany's still not making a move on those territories. KMT would be quite strong now. Okay, now Germany annexed Bohemia. Now Japan grabs Hopei and Suyan up in the mountains, and the whole coastline, Kwangtung and everything. So they're now collecting a decent amount of income and putting a lot of pressure on those KMT forces. Germany annexes Slovakia. Yeah, and Japan's still doing quite well for itself. Let's see. When is this one going to kick off? Operation Tripits. November, December, January. Okay, it looks like Northern England captured. Poland, some of those territories being taken. Estonia, I believe that's called. I can't remember right now. That's embarrassing. Maybe it's Latvia. Lithuania. Whatever it is. Lithuania, I think. And Belgium going to the Germans as well. So that's interesting. And France falls. I went fast. So basically Germany using its blitz. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Germany using its lightning war and capturing France pretty quickly. I think that's a good move. You know, you get it a little bit quicker, you get all the resources quicker. I think that's pretty okay. Looks like the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact might have been signed as territory changed hands. The Japanese grabbed French Indochina and Siam. Yeah, okay. Bulgaria going over to the Germans. Romania is still part of the controlled by the enemy. Okay, the Japanese capturing Calcutta. That's pretty interesting. Very interesting. So the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was signed because Romania isn't being attacked further. Okay, now it's the next. Norway is being captured. And yeah, the situation. Okay, Japan grabbing Aden and the Dutch East Indies. Italy grabbing Yugoslavia and Sudan. So they're at war now. Germany grabbing the other part of that area. Finland. Oh, Soviets grabbing Norway. That's interesting. And Japan grabbing a lot of territory here too. That's pretty dramatic. In India, sorry. I guess I should specify because you might not see my mouse. Japan grabbing all of India. Germany grabbing Labrador from Canada. Kind of not worth much, but still interesting. Still very interesting. The Japan grabbing Iran. Germany holding all of Norway. Italy trying to make a play for some of the northern African regions. Japan's going to be a beast in this one. America making a landing in Narvik, or northern Norway. Soviets pushing back a little bit. We see Japan making inroads against the Soviets. Japan is hugely big right now. It's got a lot going on for it. KMT making a push and grabbing some territories. Now Ottawa is under threat by the Germans. And Turkey goes over to the Germans as they grab Transcaucasus. This is probably not a good look here. But the fact that Turkey swings, or Turkey was captured, when did that occur? Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad for the Russians that occurred. That allows a lot of danger to occur. Japan grabbing some territory. Japan's going to be a beast in this one. Italy's not doing as much as it ought to or could do, but still very interesting. Americans pushing down south into some territory there. Yeah, the Middle East is definitely in Axis control. I haven't seen too much Germans in Canada ever before. That's interesting. CCP back in the picture. Germany grabbing all of Ukraine. Germany grabbing some American territories. Russia grabbing southern Norway. Yeah. Germans up in Michigan, or not Michigan, wherever that is. All of the Middle East in Axis hands, and now just Egypt under threat. Italy holding on to a portion of Bessarabia here, or wherever that is. Soviets trying to push back in Azerbaijan. Japan has basically captured all of CCP Chinese territory. Only the KMT holding out. Goodness. This one's going to be a rough one for the Allies, because everywhere you look, you see the Japanese strong. Germany is quite strong as well. Soviets putting up a heck of a fight. Good for them. They're doing quite well for themselves, all things considered. Germany finally taken off of Europe, off of North America. Yeah, the Allies are doing quite okay considering what's going on, but the Soviets, the fact they're holding out against this immense pressure by the Japanese and the Germans, and the Italians obviously too by being here. Novosibirsk falls to the Japanese. Yeah, and Australia is falling to the Japanese slowly too. Yeah, there's definitely some situations going on here. And Germany made some huge pushes into Russian territory. Japan as well. There's a connection now between them as they can exchange lend-lease back and forth across Russia. Italy grabs Greece. This game is going to probably be called pretty quick. Yeah. The Axis at 15 points. The Allies at 5 in the common turn 2. Well done, Axis, in this one. But I seen, by the evidence here, it looked like Russia put up a really good fight despite what it can do. So that's just my impressions from the visual changes of the map. Of course, I don't see the actual stuff. But this is a really interesting game too. Rarely have I seen Germans up in Canada. The Soviets are doing quite well. If they're going into Norway, that means that they're fighting hard where they can. The Japanese in Alaska, that shows, the Japanese are doing quite well for themselves. I think the fact that they can start generating resources, income, and just start to snowball everything else, good for them. The Axis won this one, but it looks like the other ones put up a decent fight as well. All right, lastly, we have one more game to talk about. This has gone a little bit longer than I would have liked, but hey, it's worthwhile talking about at some point. Okay, Operation Hats. This is a game I participated in. Germany was played by me, USSR by 5-Star General, Japan was played by Trig, Davik played the British Commonwealth, and MP7 as the USA. Alright, let me open up the YouTube page again and see if we can find where we're at. Neptune. Hats, here we go. So, right off the start, the Nationalists captured Eastern Andalusia, Germany annexed Austria, and that's about it. The typical kind of start. Nothing much to be seen here. Italy managed to capture Abyssinia quite quickly, but we lost it very quickly as well. I had no idea that the French could recapture it. The CCP grabbing territory from the KMT forces. I moved my guys out of Abyssinia, and then France just walked in. It was funny. It was sad, but it was funny. All right, Germany annexing Slovakia. Catalonia, the only holdout to the forces here of the Republicans. Japan went to war in, what's it? Yeah, Japan went to war in July 37, capturing much of the coastal regions with only one territory in Shantung holding out. So things are interesting. This was a fun game. Let's see. Yeah, here we have it. So the German, the nationalists, Spanish nationalists captured all of Spain, but the French captured Abyssinia. I had no idea they could, but they did. Good for them. That was nice. A good move by them. A good move yeah, good move. The CCP trying to get away from the Japanese over here in Asia. KMT making some moves, recapturing some territory. And when did things kick off? I don't even remember exactly when things kicked off. Okay, so the Italians kicked off by grabbing Egypt and capturing southern France, so that way it could allow for some dramatic moves by the Germans in the next year. Okay, and the Germans used their lightning war to capture all of that, grabbing some territory here, going for Romania, annexing, grabbing Syria, and things are looking okay for these guys. CCP holding the interior area. USSR doing quite well for themselves, grabbing all of Finland basically, and a good portion of northern Italy as well. The Italians reconsolidating their forces a little bit better. Oops, kind of a blurry image right now. The Japanese having Siam here. The Germans extending their position in Syria and Iraq here. And now the Russians grabbing all of Iran. Boy, this was an interesting fight. Germany having Bessarabia, losing it to the British. Son of a gun. And I think the Germans went back and captured it all. Yeah. Oh, and southern Norway and northern Norway in German hands. Germany recaptured Bessarabia. Kind of a little bit more less scattered than some of the other games I've seen. Japan grabbing some territory here. Soviets are looking like a solid block. I've noticed that in this game, there is less sporadic kind of deep reaches into enemy territory, because we've seen like Eastern Germany fall to the Soviets, and we see like deep inroads, all kind of stuff going on. In this game, it seemed to kind of consolidate our borders and not have so much sniping shots. The Italians grabbing South Africa here. Germans grabbing Belgian Congo. The Germans grabbing Scotland and Northern England, losing Northern England. The British recapturing some territory. The Italians capturing Cape Town. You won't see this border shift much in France. So now Germany declared war on USSR. You see that we're not going to grab too much territory. We grabbed Istanbul, some territories here, but broadly speaking, things didn't change too much. There's a massive fortified line between Germany and the Soviets, and so that border didn't shift much. And every time they tried to flank around me, I just built another fortification, and that way they had a difficult time getting around me. The British slowly trying to reacquire, the French also reacquiring Africa from the enemy. The Germans capturing some parts of Turkey as well, to kind of make a connection between the two. Japanese making some pushes in. Oh, I think it actually was the other way around. The Russians attacked the Japanese first, and then here we go. Russians attacking the Japanese first, and the Japanese managed to push them back a little bit later on. The Japanese also capturing parts. Well, at some point they captured Indochina, which wasn't all that long ago. So, that Dutch East Indies was back here grabbing Indochina. We captured Kola as well from the enemy, so that was pretty neat. And the Japanese now generating some income in this neck of the woods. Australia, New Zealand, and these guys here. Southern Iran we captured. The Germans did rather. Things didn't change much in this game, like I said. Once we grabbed territory, they didn't change as much hands as in some of the other games that we've seen. I think, anyways. But that's just my impression from watching the game. The Americans make a landing in Morocco. Yeah. What else did they do? The British recapturing, or I think it was the French recaptured Cape Town. The Italians kind of marching their way upwards. I think they got wiped out fairly quickly from this point. The Americans declaring war on the Free French, so we don't see the Vichy anymore. Or sorry, the Vichy French. Scotland still in German hands, or recaptured in German hands, taken over by Davik very handily again. And the Anzac recapturing all of Australia. The Americans captured Syria. The Germans declared war, captured Portugal. These, yeah, there we go. They did change. The Japanese going as far as Novosibirsk, capturing that territory. The French recapturing parts of Africa. The Japanese capturing Kiska Island over here at some point. The Italians capturing some territory on the East Front. They were present in force there. The Russians capturing northern Norway. The Japanese still holding some ground over there. The British recaptured southern Iran. Yeah, the Germans recaptured South Africa over here. And the Russians recaptured Novosibirsk. The Soviets captured all the way as far as Hungary, but lightly. I think they only grabbed it with one unit, and they got pushed back. Syria went back into German hands. The Americans went to war against Spain, captured Galicia and Leon, and at this point, we called it a truce. Axis got 9 victory points, the Comintern 5, and the Allies 5. Now we'll go to our game, so you can have a little look at the situation. I did save it here. Let's have a little look and see what the situation was right at the end. So we see the Americans in force in Galicia and Leon. We see our forces, they had these guys over here. They were going to go for Madrid probably to take away that victory point. But at the end of the day, they couldn't change too much. Now, if memory serves, as it stood right at the end of the game, we still had 11 victory points. Right before the top of turn number 19 is where, well, like end of 18. So end of 18, the Axis had 11 victory points. Now we thought, with the Allies having 5, the Axis having 11, and the Comintern 5, we looked at the map and said, what are we likely to have? And we thought maybe the Allies would manage to take away some victory points from the Axis. We thought Festung Europa they'd take away, and they might take away our Spanish Civil War, but they might also take away a Pacific buffer zone. But in the exchange, they're going to probably lose something as well. I can't remember exactly the ins and outs behind it, but there's a couple of things that might occur. There was a couple of things that might have occurred. I think it was either they couldn't go for the Spanish Civil War because I could have blocked them in some fashion. But whatever. Anyways, long and short of it is, we gave them 2 victory points that they would take off the Axis. We gave the Allies 1 victory point because they would probably get one of these ones, Big Blue Feet, or Triumph of Capitalism, or Sphere of Influence, I can't remember which, and that would settle the score. So they got 1 victory point, we took away 2 from ours, and we thought that would be a fair compromise. And this is the situation here. So on the East Front, the reason there wasn't too much maneuvering going on is because of all these German fortifications. So the Soviets could launch out and go to Hungary or Slovakia and push out, but they would also risk losing Central Romania. If they made eventually a push towards Warsaw to get 2 victory points, well, they can't hold both territories, and they would have to fight through our forces, and we could rail some stuff here in the meantime, that kind of thing. So the situation on the East Front was stale and wasn't going to go anywhere. The situation over here, we still had a fairly massive fleet present over there, and that was matching what the Americans could throw up against us as well. So we could come into here, engage their forces, or at least blockade them in that neck of the woods, and prevent them from at least a couple turns going up into this area. So that's basically it. A summary of the game thus far, where we're at. Now, I want to go over and show you guys one last thing. I'm also dragging this thing a little longer than I would like to. So I want to show you one last thing. So this game ended, and the winners moved on to the next one. Now, there was some debate about how we should structure this as a, what was it called, a league game, where each player plays 3 games, and then whoever has the most victory points wins the tournament. Or there's an idea of doing an elimination style where we go from 4 tables to fewer tables to 1 final table, and the winner would be crowned. Turns out that it's probably a good thing that we did elimination style, because there's people that dropped out of the game due to like family commitments and life and busyness and work and all this other stuff. So at the end of the day, we wouldn't have had enough people anyways to do 4 tables. So it worked out pretty handily that we still had enough players for 3 tables. So our elimination style still worked out. We did have to have a couple guys had to leave the game because we had too many players as it is, but there was a couple dropouts as well. For instance, Tactical wasn't supposed to be in this round, but because somebody else dropped out, he was able to participate. So we have 3 games going on. Operation Anthropoid. Trig is playing as Germany. He has 16 points. Now, we also do it that whatever victory points your faction or your alliance wins, plus everybody gets to award 6 victory points to other players in the game. And so he has a total of 16 points. The Warden has 19, Sebscallion has 7, and the Electron has 20, and I have 13. So this is the game that we got going on. Operation Schultz, Davik has 8, Silk has 10, 5-star General 8, Shadow has 23, and Tactical 6. And then Operation Andromeda, Elite Golden has 8, Edelwolf 20, Veteran 16, Rebubs has 24, and Major Foe has 18. And the winners will go into the final tier of the game and be crowned winner. So there'll be up to 2 winners that will, well, the winners of these games, so there'll be up to 2 from each one of these, will make up the 5 players for this game, and then the winners of these games, up to 2 players, will become crowned as tournament winners. And so that's the story behind all this. All right, gentlemen, I've yammered on long enough. I've taken a lot of your time, but I thought I should give a little update as to how the tournament is going. Thank you all for watching, and I will, like I say, check out Bird Motion's page here, YouTube page, yeah, Bird Motion. I'll put the link in the description if I don't forget, and you'll be able to check out his action sequence. And supposedly in the next game it's going to be a little bit more stuff. He might outline the territories a bit much, so you'll be able to see which one is where. And also, if we put down a task force marker like this, he will also mark that on the map as well, meaning that you can actually see some of the naval movements back and forth, because all this doesn't really show up on the screen. Because it's only the exchanges of territory, so you'd be able to see like, there's a task force marker here, so that's what presence of forces they've got going on. So that's the idea. Okay, guys, thank you all for watching, and stick around for the next game, which in my case is called Operation Anthropoid. Cheers, all!